and you're going to go, what? What is this?
I think it's certainly going to raise a few eyebrows when you see it pop up in a moment or two. But Stevens, you know, a player who's been playing for a number of years. We've been referring to it throughout the day. I mean, video game championships have been around a while. Stevens been back in some much older formats, so a wealth of experience to pull off when a new format comes to the fore.
Well, it's going to be a couple of familiar faces on Steven's team, but let's talk about that team that Justin is running. You have 3 potential Trick Room users in Reuniclus, Dusclops, and Mimikyu, and some really good utilization Pokemon for the Trick Room in that Rhyperior.
Yeah, Rhyperior, and Mimikyu itself does very well in the Trick Room as well. It's able to deal a lot of damage. I think this is probably one of the most dedicated Trick Room teams I've seen in a long, long time. Just even from team preview saying, hey, guess what? This is what I'm doing. I'm going to set up and play around in a Trick Room. So really interesting to see that one come to the fore. I think one Pokemon that's going to raise some eyebrows a little bit over on Justin's side is the Lipard. We talked about Prankster as an ability a little bit earlier. Joe and I were waxing lyrical on that for a while, and we didn't actually talk about Lipard. So hopefully in this game it'll get to show off exactly what it can do. Of course, Steven's team, when you look at it, hey, for those who've been following regionals for a little while, probably going to recognize that lineup.
Definitely going to recognize that lineup because you got some familiar faces on there for sure. And I'm really excited about how Steven's going to utilize things like the Duraludon and maybe even a Dynamax form of that in order to set up for some of the Pokemon that are in the back. You can also use Whimsicott as a great setup Pokemon for Pokemon that are going to be in more towards the back there. So very excited to kind of get this game kicked off. And we're already going to be seeing the leads from both of these trainers. Steven's going to show us the Charizard and the Jellicent as Justin shows off Lipard and Reuniclus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Lipard Reuniclus is a lead that I've talked about once yet in the Sword and Shield format. Lipard definitely not, and Reuniclus certainly a little bit more on the fringes. But, you know, we've seen this Charizard come out a number of times. It provides so much offensive pressure, depending on exactly how it's trained and what type it is, can cause a number of problems. Of course, Lipard's definitely one of the Pokemon that people question how you're going to get all the moves you want on it. And it's only got 4 move slots, but there's probably about 7 or 8 that are worth including. So I think the early portion of this game, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Steven to figure out exactly not only what this Lipard has, but how he's trying to play with it. And I think one way to get around that might just be to maybe not even afford him that opportunity.
Turn 1 Dynamax here from Steven. It is going to be that Charizard. And in fact, let me correct myself because that's not a Dynamax, that's a Gigantamax Charizard.
Yeah, on this team we were expecting Gigantamax. Yes. We just had to wait for the confirmation.
Yeah, definitely waiting for the confirmation there, but it actually looks like we're going to be matching that Gigantamax factor. Maybe not with a Gigantamax of their own, because neither Pokemon get a chance to utilize that Gigantamax factor, but a Dynamax, and it is going to be the Reuniclus that ends up Dynamaxing for Justin's side. Yeah,
I think that's important as well, to make sure that the Reuniclus is in a position to be able to, you know, keep itself safe from something like the G-Max Wildfire. There's some really fun interactions. Lipard just going with the fake tears immediately here, though. Wants to get rid of this Charizard as soon as possible, it seems.
Special defense harshly falling, but Charizard's going to move first before the Reuniclus does, and going to try to knock out the Lipard, and it brings it right down to 1 hit point. That's going to be a Focus Sash proccing there.
Yeah, Focus Sash sticking around, but the Pokemon on his side of the field are surrounded by fire. It doesn't matter, though. Water Spout going to pick up the knockout on Lipard there.
Lipard going down, but Reuniclus gets a chance to make a comeback maybe for its partner, Max Lightning, and look at how much damage that does to the Gigantamax Charizard.
That fake tears are coming in such handy there. Of course, not the most common move, an electric-type move on Reuniclus, but I think both Pokemon, or both trainers, trading 1 Pokemon for 1 there, and a really good position for Justin Carris in the early portion of this game. Getting rid of that Gigantamax Charizard before it can deal insane amounts of damage is really important.
Reuniclus is going to take a bit of G-Max Wildfire damage though, but Dusclops now going into the field, and that's another one of those Pokemon that can really help this Reuniclus out, and Togekiss coming in for the Charizard on Steven's side.
Yeah, and really nice hit. Dusclops Frisk, giving away the items on both of Steven's Pokemon, getting information of the Babiri Berry on Togekiss and the Cassib Berry over on the Jellicent side, so knowing that helps him play around it. The one thing to note though, Justin's already revealed Max Lightning on this Reuniclus through some of its move choices. But the Pokemon on Steven's side of the field are not going to appreciate that. Neither of them can Dynamax to defend themselves from it anymore.
Neither Pokemon are going to be able to Dynamax, that's for sure. The Dynamax factor getting used so early for that Gigantamax Charizard, but I think that this is a pretty good position for Justin to be in. Now they have the opportunity to utilize Dusclops as more of a supportive Pokemon and maybe even being able to get up that Trick Room set up, but Steven also has an ability to deal with that Trick Room.
Yeah, I mean, he's got options for Trick Room, you know, maybe being able to even reverse it with the Jellicent, just immediately putting it back to the normal state of affairs. That said, though, Dusclops revealing one of its fine attacks.
Yes, the finer tech being that ally switch, and Reuniclus going for another Max Lightning right into the Togekiss, and that does so much damage even without the help of the fake tears.
It doesn't need the fake tears now. He's got the electric terrain from the previous one, so the damage output is still exceptionally high, and Jellicent actually sets up Trick Room, which, you know, you look at Justin's team, and he probably appreciates that quite a lot.
Definitely going to appreciate it. And even though Charizard is no longer on the field, those G-Max Wildfire Flames are still going to burn really bright.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be doing a little bit of damage. That is important, I think, to try and soften up some of these Pokemon. But another Pokemon that Reuniclus really doesn't have an issue facing down is going to be this Conkeldurr. You know, Reuniclus now can move away from using the terrain to get the damage and relying on the same type of attack bonus, which this Reuniclus is causing a lot of problems.
And there's not really a great way for Steven to deal with that Reuniclus, just looking at their team. Conkeldurr is going to try its absolute best, but I don't know how much it's really going to be able to get through.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the ways to threaten Reuniclus are gone, and I think the biggest threat in the Charizard was removed early. Justin just taking such an easy command of this game, that Liepard drawing so much attention, has left Reuniclus, the only damage it's been taking so far is from the G-Max Wildfire between turns. So it's still exceptionally healthy, and it's got one more turn of its Dynamax to try and deal the most damage possible.
And it's already been getting maximum
value. That is the end. My apologies.
Already got maximum value out of that Dynamax, though, so that was really clean play, but that's also... maybe it had one more turn.
It did, yeah, and then the forfeit. But I was questioning myself. I saw it, you know, shrink down, and I thought, what's going on there? But Justin is in such a good position. He actually forces the early forfeit from Steven, who probably has been thinking for the last 2 turns how to try and navigate this situation.
Yeah, the situation is going to be very, very critical for Steven to kind of maneuver around, because that Reuniclus just packs so much pressure in terms of the moveset that it's running that Steven's going to have to try to find a workaround for it, and I'm not sure that there's really a phenomenal answer.
I don't see one right now. I mean, the reveal of Max Lightning keying off something on Reuniclus' side that's an electric type attack, you know, it deals very comfortably with Charizard. Obviously, Fake Tears was needed as well, but that's a good way to do it. Deals comfortably with Jellicent and Togekiss, I think, would be fair statements to make. And then Conkeldurr has to worry about a Psychic type attack from Reuniclus. So that's 4 of your Pokemon that you're saying, this Reuniclus could actually run through them with ease. Maybe Duraludon is something to look at. I think that might have to be an option. But at the same time, you know, Justin didn't seem in any danger at any point during that game, even the lead.
Yeah, the lead, the turn 0 right off the bat just kind of looked like Justin was in the driver's seat there, and we'll see whether or not they decide to make any adjustments, but I don't think you really need to after how convincing that game 1 was.
Not at all. I don't see a reason for Justin to deviate from that strategy just yet. He might try and play it a little differently. I mean, I think the way Trick Room went up was a little odd, right, you know, in the way that they played around that. But he gave away a lot of information. He did give away, obviously, Max Lightning available on Reuniclus. He gave away Ally Switch on Dusclops, which, yeah, it's a little bit more than you might want to give up. But it got him such a convincing win that he's going to force a strong adaptation from Steven there.
He's going to have to. I mean, the Charizard just didn't get a chance to do too much at all in that first game, and Charizard might have to be something that gets preserved for a little bit later once the Reuniclus is within that knockout range.
Yeah, I think you've got to find a way to deal with the Reuniclus as quickly as possible. There's certainly options on Steven's side. Looking at previous iterations of this team, there's certain ways around it that he might have to lean into, and we'll see if they come to the fore in game number 2.
Well, we have our leads. We're just waiting to get into the game.
Both trainers look focused. I mean, and Justin not getting ahead of himself at all. Just keeping it nice and relaxed, saying, you know what, game 1 was easy. Didn't even need all the turns of Dynamax.
And Steven looks unfazed as well, just like kind of ready for this game too.
Yeah, I mean, he knows there's going to be adaptations needed. There's no secret there. I don't think that's something you can hide from. And I think that's something you just have to lean into and try and maybe pull out a trick of your own. You know, Justin gave up Ally Switch Max Lightning. Now it's Steven's turn to give up something that could potentially win him game 2 and then bring us to a really close game 3.
I definitely think it's not over yet until we see kind of the adaptation that Steven's going to end up making in this game, because I definitely look at Duraludon and Charizard as potentially strong options in either the early part of the game for Duraludon or the late game for Charizard.
Yeah, I think Charizard in the back is probably the way to go. You can't let it fall down to Fake Tears and Max Lightning again. That's honestly unacceptable for Charizard's damage output. You want it there. Getting a G-Max Wildfire is great. That was a perfect start. G-Max Wildfire, guaranteed knockout. But then after that, it was kind of like, oh, okay. And then the follow-up Water Spout from Jealous in that turn was just a little underwhelming, if you will.
I wonder if there was just too much pressure, too much attention being drawn towards the Liepard, that Steven was not really worrying about the other threats that were on the board.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I don't think we've seen much Liepard, and we've definitely not seen much Reuniclus either. When you look at that pairing, you think, oh, all right, they're going to do some setup, something. Like, let me just fire off attacks and see where we can go from here. And I think maybe the targeting's the issue. So let's take G-Max Wildfire. If you throw that at Reuniclus, you get a lot of damage down, you get the burn between turns, and then you're following up with the Water Spout. Liepard isn't known for being particularly bulky. You're getting that extra residual damage from G-Max Wildfire, so you kind of get the same effect, right? You get the knockout between turns. And I think just where we put the damage, where you place that damage is a little more important.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Maybe targeting, just having a small adjustment there is going to help out Steven a lot, but it's definitely not over quite yet. How do you feel about Whimsicott being a Pokemon that Steven can bring?
I like it. I think Whimsicott would provide a similar option to Liepard, in that Whimsicott does have access to Fake Tears. You know, you could make some plays like that where you just go Fake Tears and then follow up with a huge amount of damage. I think that's, you know, we talk about there was no damage threat. That's one of the ways to do it. That's certainly one of just the better options to get through. So we'll get into game 2 very, very briefly and, you know, see exactly what adaptations they make. I think the pressure's on Steven to make the most adaptations, but in the same boat, you know, if you're Justin, you can't just follow the same game plan if Steven does make those changes.
Yeah, Justin's going to have to kind of think a couple steps ahead in this scenario just to see whether or not Steven is going to make an adjustment, and then, okay, well, from there, what do I have to do in order to win this game 2 and clinch it out really early on? So I'm definitely looking forward to the playstyle adjustments that Steven needs to make, and then maybe potentially some Pokemon adjustments that Justin has to make in response to that. Yeah,
and I think he's going to have to look at the board every turn and see what he can do with any changes that come through from Steven. They are in team previews, so they've had a little while to think about it between games 1 and 2. Something that Steven didn't do in that game was actually play it out. Justin was giving up a lot of information, and I think it might have been interesting to say, all right, well, I'm actually going to play one more turn and just see if he shows me something. Like, even if it's an item, like, just remember how much Justin got out of bringing in that Dusclops. He got to Frisk and then go, okay, like, I now know your items and I can play to those. And even, you know, balancing it out a little bit, if Steven had played on and got that reveal, that might have been the way to go with that.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to how these players go for turn 0. Looking at those leads, remember, Justin was in a better position in that game 1, but is that going to be the case going into game 2? We're about to find out. Yeah,
it's coming right up. Both trainers leaning in, ready to go in round number 3. They've actually had a lot of time to prep for this game compared to some of the other players in the field. So, you know, they should be really on edge for it. The lead's coming onto the field. Charizard and Whimsicott. So we've already got an adaptation from Steven. But as we see at the top of the screen, Justin with exactly the same deal.
I guess Justin's not super concerned at the moment about too many adaptations that Steven can make, just kind of going with the same leads. Maybe we'll see a bit of an adjustment in terms of what moves those Pokemon decide to utilize. But Whimsicott is a great adjustment here. We just talked about that.
Well, if you look at it, you know, basically Steven has the same option that Justin did in game number 1, where you can say Fake Tears, follow up with an attack, and knock out even through something like Dynamax. So that might be an option for him to try and play through as we get into, you know, let's let him Dynamax the Reuniclus again, and then we'll just Fake Tears and knock it out with G-Max Wildfire coming off of Blast Burn, which is, you know, G-Max Wildfire and moves like that are huge amounts of damage. So be curious to see exactly how they play it out. The Dynamaxes are coming through right again, obviously Gigantamax in this case.
Gigantamax Charizard, for sure. I definitely don't think that Steven's going to be clicking Dynamax for Whimsicott anytime soon, but this Gigantamax Charizard is going to be threatening a lot of damage with that particular G-Max Wildfire that is based off of the blast burn, so that's going to be very interesting. But Liepard going for a fake out onto the Whimsicott, so Whimsicott's not going to be able to do anything this turn. G-Max Wildfire though, not even a Dynamax, still going into the Liepard. Liepard still looks like a threat to Steven.
Yeah, I mean, he's left the Reuniclus alone. The Reuniclus hasn't even decided to Dynamax this turn, but just gets to set up Trick Room absolutely for free right now. And this could get real nasty real quick. Obviously, Reuniclus takes a little bit of damage right now. Maybe saving the Dynamax for a different sweeper, something like the Rhyperior. Wouldn't be a bad shout at all here. And it could get a little dicey a little bit quickly right here. There's Rhyperior right off the bat, so Trick Room's in play. You've got Whimsicott, which, hey, really not the biggest threat right now. And then you've got a Charizard to look at where you go, all right, I can Dynamax here on the Rhyperior, and then just start Max Rock falling and just going crazy from there. So we'll see exactly how he decides to play out this turn. But I think Steven made the correct call, but Justin changed his playstyle perfectly for it too.
Absolutely. Rhyperior just going for the Protect 2 in case it's going to take some sort of max move, but unfortunately for Steven, this is going to be a max guard, and Whimsicott going for a light screen to really protect those Pokemon. Let's see what this Reuniclus is going to end up doing here. Reuniclus just going to use Psychic right onto the Whimsicott, and Whimsicott actually going to hang on. Yeah,
that light screen helping out, meaning it's just clinging on there. Only just so. Interesting to see Rhyperior actually protect that turn, trying to keep itself safe, but I think he's made a very smart read there. It looks weird that he stayed in his normal form, but he wants to get the most out of his Dynamax turns, right? So if he knows he's going to be protecting, why Dynamax that turn and just call the Charizard max guarding, and then you're now in a, the ways that the Dynamax turns overlap, Justin could get 2 turns where he's got a Dynamax Pokemon on the field, and, Steven just doesn't. This is the last turn of Charizard's Gigantamax form, and he really needs to capitalize on it.
And there's still 3 more turns of Trick Room, so this Rhyperior is going to be able to take full advantage of that if Justin goes for that Dynamax, and there they go. Yeah,
it's got to be done. You've got to make sure you get the most out of it. And I think that is one of those top level plays to hold your Dynamax until you need it. Getting himself in a position where if he deals with Charizard this turn, which is exceptionally possible, and just being able to say, you know what, I'm going to be able to get what I need to do. Whimsicott, though, forcing to fight back with Fake Tears here.
Fake Tears will drop the special defense of the Rhyperior, but Reuniclus gets a chance to move before this Gigantamax Charizard does. So Whimsicott going to get knocked out, but it's time for Rhyperior to utilize Max Rockfall here. And look at this. There's going to be the reveal of the item on that Charizard just to keep it potentially safe through this Max Rockfall.
Yeah, the Charty Berry reducing the damage output, but it's not enough.
Not enough at all.
Charty Berry is great against, Rock Slides.
Oh,
such
critical hit.
Critical hit, getting it all the way there. So I know that a number of people have talked about the usefulness of Charty Berry, but the critical hit means it doesn't matter at all. It would be such a close call against the Max Rockfall. And look at Justin again, right in the driving seat. I was going to question a little bit, his targeting of exactly the damage done there with Psychic into Whimsicott, but knowing he gets the knockout, or confident to get the knockout on the Charizard, in a great position. I do think it's cool to see the animation of G-Max Wildfire and Reuniclus, but no damage coming through.
Well, here's the Duraludon. Here's another adjustment that Steven is making. Duraludon and Jellicent are going to be the last 2 Pokemon for them. Yeah,
I mean, both of those Pokemon are great against this Rhyperior, but he's got to be careful. They do both enjoy Trick Room. That's not an issue here for the next 2 turns. But Rhyperior is still a very high health level, and maybe in a position to just turn around and say, all right, if you do hit me, I'll get weakness policy. And if you don't knock me out, I'm just taking knockouts the next turn. I mean, Jellicent's a little harder to handle than this Duraludon based on coverage. We'll see if Justin makes the right call on his some of his targeting here.
Yeah, Duraludon going for the Protect. Reuniclus using Psychic and does go into the Jellicent, so not the protected Pokemon, but let's see where Rhyperior decides to follow up. It's going to be a Max Quake.
Yep, Max Quake, but where does it go?
It goes right into the Jellicent. That's a knockout.
Yeah, fantastic call there by Justin. Just saying, hey, your Duraludon's already scared. I'm going to get my special defense up a little bit too, just to make sure your Duraludon's going to struggle, even if it puts it in a position. But Steven really not getting there. Look at that. Reuniclus not taking any damage through the Magic Guard. The only damage Rhyperior has really taken is, little bits of chip damage there. And Duraludon's not going to be able to deal with a Max Quake from this Rhyperior right now, let alone follow up from Reuniclus, or actually damage before from Reuniclus. and then whatever Justin has in the back.
And this is before any sorts of boosts are coming out onto the Rhyperior either.
Yeah.
All the damage that's been done to it so far has been from those G-Max Wildfire Flames, and there's the forfeit coming through